Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait a little bit for everyone to jump on. We've got Jess. Here we go.
Oh, pointed very far down. Okay, wait. Back up.
I have
Okay.
the benefit of being able to get settled.
Yeah, I'm like I thought I said it perfectly how we had it this morning, but I guess not.
Jess, welcome.
Thanks.
How are you?
I'm good. We got our tickets
Oh,
today.
good.
We're
And I'm
very excited.
Costco.
Did you get what was it that you needed? Oil?
Pillows.
Oh, I thought it was olive oil for some reason.
Um,
Maybe that was I found out Starbucks does olive oil drinks today, and I was like, that's gonna be buried in my mind.
that's never going to leave my brain.
I know.
That will live rent free. Awesome. All right, well, let's get started. So thank you so much for joining us. I love this community and you all rock. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone of the 3-day flash sale that's coming up on Wednesday. So the Institute is running a sale on the Certified Sexuality OT CEU courses starting this Wednesday. So tune in via Instagram or email for more information on that. Okay, great. Now let's get to the nitty gritty. Jess, so we are here for the Teach Me Sex series, which is an educational series to learn all about the different ways humans have sex, express their sexuality, and the joys and complications of connecting with others. So we ask the same 5 questions every time. Typically, I interview OTs. I love to interview OTs here. And while we are highlighting diverse ways of engagement and different experiences, I also want to encourage the listeners to really consider how they can relate and how some of what you might hear today helps you understand yourself a little bit better. So Teach Me Sex is explicit, honest, intimate, and professional. And we want to disclose that not everyone publicly shares about themselves as sexual beings. Actually, most people do not, and that's okay. That does not mean that they aren't sexual or aren't empowered in their sexuality. So said really frankly, let's not sexualize people who share or asexualize people who don't share. And also, I caution generalizing what we hear today to other people who share identities with our guests. So we are delighted that our guests come to Teach Me Sex and they use self-disclosure as a form of education. And they do so because education is a part of their personal and professional missions. So Teach Me Sex is all about the more you know, the more you know. So today we have Jess Bauzá de García. Jess is a collective member and research consultant for Laurel, which is an LGBTQIA+ autism research collective. And Jess, we're so glad to have you here today. Thank you for joining us and teaching us. So let's start off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself. So before we get into the Teach Me Sex questions, what do we need to know about you? What do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah. Well, those are like a really good intro. So I'm Jess. I use they, them pronouns. I'm trans, non-binary, and queer. I'm a Puerto Rican person living in the greater Boston area, and I am in a monogamous marriage with my partner of 11 years. I'm an OT, and I'm an OT researcher. I work with Dr. Elizabeth Schmidt with the Laurel Research Collective, and like Kate's mentioned, we do accessibility research at the intersection of LGBTQIA+ people that are also autistic. And I also do some consulting work on the side. I do accessibility research or consulting for companies that are trying to be more inclusive and have more usable platforms for greater variety of people. I also recently started coaching people in the kink or BDSM community to help create more inclusive spaces and spaces that people can engage in that have physical disabilities or will consider a person's mental or like sensory needs. And I also work on the individual basis, doing the coaching with people that are recovering from an injury or surgery and still want to play while they're on that road to recovery.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jess. So with the kink consulting work, you're consulting with like bigger groups or bigger facilities to make sure that their like kink like playhouses are have better accessibility, right?
So it's actually more just like one person that runs the play space, and then I talk to them about what things currently look like and what changes they could make, almost like how you would do like a home
eval.
Like, yeah, home eval for someone that's going home after like stroke or a long-term stay.
Yeah.
But it's for play in this really specific kinky atmosphere.
That's awesome. All right, cool. All right, well, let's just jump in. So question number one is, tell us about some of the ways that you have sex. And as the OTs who are all listening here, think about, one, this is just awesome, fun information, but think about like activity analysis while Jess describes the way that they have sex.
Yes. So I do want to say, which I loved your disclaimer in the beginning, out of respect for all of my partners that I've had, both past and present, I'm going to stick with just gender neutral pronouns. I am queer, so I don't want any of my past partners to feel like I'm calling them out or specifically describing them. But yeah, so boundaries are super important to me, obviously. I really enjoy creative and like spontaneous sex. I always talk things out beforehand. I am very chatty, so I always like to pre-negotiate things. So like definite yeses, things that I'm willing to try, hard no's, and that way, whenever we're feeling it, we can be as spontaneous as we want to be.
Mm. Okay, so you're talking things out for like a later date when you then go try it out.
So it's like a surprise.
So it's kind of like a surprise, and it keeps that spontaneity.
And it keeps
so you're kind
of things like fresh. So like 11 years, you always want things to be like, you know what, this is what we're feeling. Maybe we want to try this, but spring it on me.
Yeah.
Like let things be fresh and sort of unknown. I don't want to talk things to death.
I see. So it's like you're in the car or at the breakfast table and you're saying like, hey, theoretically, would you want to do this?
Yeah. If someone were to say this, what would you think? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah. That way it takes like the pressure out of it. So it's not like you're already completely stripped down. You're like, by the way, what do you think of this?
What do you think?
What do you think? Should we use this now?
As it's like already vibrating.
Yeah. No, so I never want someone to feel pressure to say yes. Like I said, like boundaries are so important. So I like to have all the chatting done ahead of time. So that way when the vibrating friend comes out, it's not like, oh, should I just say yes? Because they've already turned it on.
It's a really good point. The kind of like what goes on when we feel pressured to say yes or to say no, and our clients will go through this too. And in the moment is always, it always feels like a little bit more is at stake, right? And I often talk to my clients about like when they're trying new things or different things, or maybe some things that are a little bit for them like more risky or risque. I typically will say both things. One is like talk about it even just before you start, as in like hours before you start. And then I always say like just one thing at a time, because I've had like they're like, well, do you want to try this like vibrating thing and we'll record it? And they're like, no.
Let's do everything at once and see what sticks. No, let's not do that in the bedroom.
And let's swing from the chandeliers. It's like it's too much. Awesome. Okay.
Strap into the hard points, just like, let's go.
Okay, so how are ways that you express yourself sexually, and why do you think that this feels good for you?
Yeah, so when I don't know if everyone knows this, but you let us know these ahead of time. And when I read that, I was like, what? So like as a Puerto Rican person and curvy and femme presenting, the world has already chosen to sexualize me regardless of what I do. Um, and I have some trauma around being like sexualized at a young age and catcalled aggressively, stalked and publicly groped. That is things that I feel like when I've talked to other Hispanic and even like other Black people, or not other, but I've talked to Black people about this, and this is something that we've all really felt that like the world has chosen this path for us. So I've really like grappled with how I want to express myself sexually. For a while, I really leaned into the hypersexualization. I was like, literally everyone expects me to dress and act like J-Lo or like Sofia Vergara, and I guess I'll just wear shit that looks like I melted it and poured it on. But it didn't feel good, and honestly, it was so scary. I felt unsafe more times than not, and I just chose from then on to like really be private with how I choose to like express myself sexually. It's so exhausting having to work hard to be taken seriously when the world just wants to sexualize you. So I don't know if you've noticed or anyone else has noticed, but I almost exclusively wear like high cut shirts. I even have seamstresses add buttons on the inside to keep my shirts from gapping. I don't wear dresses professionally because I've had really uncomfortable office situations where people will comment on my body, my hips, my ass, and it's like I know some people feel empowered by publicly exhibiting that like sexual expression. Like I love that for you. I will cheerlead you from the sidelines and wearing your like leather, like harnesses, throw on a latex bustier for all you want, but like it's just not in the cards for me. And that's just where that's where I live. And I've heard it from other Hispanic folks that their sexual expression really just gets held close to your chest because it's what feels safest and better when you're out there professionally. Yeah, it's yeah, what feels good and like sexually safe
Yeah.
for me is when I have partners that know how I feel about all of this and will respect my privacy. I feel the sexiest when I know I can like unbutton and like let my hair down and someone's gonna protect my privacy and we can be fun and wild and freaky like once I know I'm safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jess. That was really interesting and certainly gave me a lot of pause. I think it's, that experience of choice, if that works, like you were saying, like if that works for certain people, then you're cheering them on. But for you, when you try that on for size, you don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think it's neat to hear you talk about, almost feeling really good when you also feel safe.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, is there a way outside of clothes and privacy when is there a way that you sexually express yourself? And also, you don't have to answer this because this was not provided in the questions, and it's kind of like, but is there some way that you kind of feel that way that has nothing to do with clothes, and you're kind of even in your house by yourself and no one's there? Are you singing? Is it when you're showering? Is it when you get your hair done?
So it's when I'm twerking to Bad Bunny in the kitchen. Is that what you're asking?
No, I don't know.
No. So I guess that, but I mean, like, I guess there's things like I love having purple hair. That is like one of the things that I feel like is super me, and I feel like it's really cool, and it makes me feel cool and maybe not hot, but just like the most me,
Okay.
which I hear like a lot of queer people say. They're like,
Yeah.
I feel the most me when I look as far from natural as possible. So like when I have purple hair, when I like tattoo myself, that's when I feel like a bad bitch.
Like a bad bitch. Sexy or like it's still not a meaningful word for you.
It I feel like this is coming across like I'm ace, and I'm really not. It's more like I'm just so reserved about it because of all the bad experiences that I've had, that like sexy is just not a word I connect with.
Yeah.
Almost like gender, where I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good, we talk a lot, or I talk a lot about like clinician bias, and, knowing that different occupations and different feelings and expressions like sexy, even, as empowered as you are in what feels good for you, you're just like, the word isn't super meaningful to me, and it maybe feels loaded or whatever.
That's
You're just like, it's not.
exactly it. Loaded is like
Yeah.
the perfect way to describe it, where
Right.
I hear that word and it's been used almost like against me, to the point where I'm like, no, strong, I'll take strong.
Okay.
Like bad, like, yeah, shit, I'll be bad as much as I want to be, but like sexy, I'm just like, ugh.
All right.
It's like when you're wearing a like sweaty t-shirt after the gym and you're like, ugh, nope, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that, in OT, I think it would be awesome, right? If OTs, a lot of the work that I do is I'm asking clients, I'm honoring their uniqueness, I'm honoring their nuance. And so a lot of times I will say things to them like, what makes you feel sexy? And I think that's a good question. Because what I'm oftentimes trying to get at is like building desire and image and body image. It's just that we need to be prepared for a client to just be like, that's just not really a meaningful word for me. So then you need to correct and be like, oh, okay, well, what makes you feel really good in your body?
Yeah.
Or sometimes I might say things like, combining them, and so I think it's just important that we could get a client that's just like, that's not a descriptor for me, and we can understand that doesn't mean that they don't feel good about themselves.
Yeah. That's like one of the things I always think about is like, I don't think I've ever felt like sexy, but I've definitely enjoyed sex, and I've definitely been in a headspace where like sex is like great. And I feel like confident, strong, like powerful are all the descriptors that I like associate more with like enjoying sex than like feeling
person.
Yeah, like feeling like sexy is just not a word I connect with. But yeah, like if you were like, what makes you feel powerful? I'm like, yeah, like having my tattoos out, like having my purple hair,
Cool.
working to Bad Bunny.
Cool. Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's like the powerful, the strong, the bad. That's what makes you feel sexual.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool. All right. So tell me about a time that you felt really validated in a dating or a sexual experience.
Yeah, this was also one of those questions that I was like, oh, you're gonna need some background. So when I was dating someone when I was younger, we had just sort of like fallen into being a couple. They were super open to like everything. They didn't have hang-ups, they didn't have shame around sex. And like for context, I was raised to be so ashamed of sex, anything to even do with dating. I was raised really Catholic, and even like affection was rare. I remember like I was reprimanded by my parents because I leaned my head on my partner, well, on a guy at the time. And my parents were like, "You're throwing yourself at him." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "This is throwing yourself at him?" Sure. And then I was told I'll never find a man if I didn't control myself. I had the whole crumbled roses, chewed up gum, shame-based introduction.
Yes.
So when I started dating this college partner, they had worked through all of this shame and guilt from being raised Catholic as well. And it was so exciting to be with them. They were really good at communicating. I think that's where my communication thing came in, where everything was talked about, everything was pre-negotiated. Like body image stuff was like worked out ahead of time, and I think that that was really affirming because I didn't even know that stuff was a part of dating. And they were just so patient, and so they like helped me when I was struggling with finding the words for things. Sort of like how like other autistic people struggle with finding the words for emotions. I couldn't even find the words for like sex or like love. I struggled with just finding words, and they were really good with helping me cut through that shame, the like guilt, the I'm burning in hell forever. And they didn't make me feel bad for like wanting to try things, and they were super chill when I didn't want to try things, and they didn't try to push or bring up the old guilt and use it against me kind of thing. And that was super validating. They were really cool about gender and fluidity, and it was just everything I could have asked for.
All right. That's awesome. So it sounded like they helped you find the words and they helped you communicate. And also I hear it's probably neat to see somebody unpack those sort of very Catholic purity culture, or, you know, heightened importance around virginity, like to see somebody who's already unpacked that and kind of be like, oh, that's how you do it.
I was like, oh, people can get past that? Oh.
I've heard a new term recently called deconverting.
Oh.
And it's not a term I know a lot about. It's not really a term that's like personally meaningful to me, but I have heard a few people use that term. I work with a lot of people that are coming for religious trauma or purity culture, and they'll come and they'll say like, that's what I'm seeking help with.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite areas of practice.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Oh, you actually see that a lot in kink, is people like using kink to get through and to heal from that. And I love it. And it is just so hard that I'm like, anytime I see someone in the weeds, I'm like, you're gonna get through.
Yeah. All right. How about, okay, so we talked about validating. How about a time where you felt it was just really complicated? Like ish was just complicated.
Yeah. So I had another partner also in college that just refused to like listen to me. So part of like the whole purity culture thing was I was very trained into being obedient, to being quiet, to slotting myself in someone else's life and not really using my needs or communicating that. And so dating them was exhausting. I tried to talk to them about stuff like my hopes for relationships, what I wanted my future marriage to look like, and I don't know if they didn't care or they just substituted their hopes for mine, but they didn't want to try things that I wanted to try. I was like, we're in college, what do you mean? And they were just cool with like the same old, and I was like, fine. And things like really fell apart because they wanted to start a family while we were really young, and I was like, absolutely not. We would like go back and forth, and she would just say things like, never wanting to have children meant that you weren't a real woman. And I was like,
oh,
okay, yes. So part of that, which I was like, congratulations, you did find out I am in fact not a real woman. But it was all over after that. Everything went downhill, and it was like, I don't care how physically attracted to you I am, or how smart you are, or how charming you are. I was like, once the safety part fell away, I just remember being like, I don't know if I can ever be intimate with you again. Like it went almost like 0 to 100, well, 100 to 0, where I was like, I can't open up to you at all anymore. They just completely burnt the bridge, and I don't think I hold grudges, but wow, I just went from
that sounds really invalidating, complex. What was it that it was, if you're not a woman if you don't want to have children.
Yes. And I was like,
what an interesting line. I mean, there's also a lot of women who are women who don't want to have children.
yes,
There's
yes.
a variety of different ways that that can play out, and it's not attached, right?
Yeah. And I remember thinking, wow, there's like a lot of not women in the world.
Me, I suppose me. All right. So, okay, our last question. So this is the teach me how to sex. So what is the Jess Bauzá de García special? What is one tip, one move, an action, to enhance pleasure and the sexy time experience?
Yeah. So I was listening. I was reading that and I was like, oh my God, what could I say? There's so many things.
So you do not have to pick just one.
I was like, get a contractor to put hard points in your house. No. But I think my number one is getting your head together. That is the best thing you can do for your sex life. Unlearning shame, self-consciousness, compulsory sexuality, performance anxiety, orgasm requirements, all of that stuff, like your mental and emotional state can impact how much you enjoy sex so much.
Right.
And just like taking that time to even just like practice on your own, like how you feel, like positions that make you feel good versus bad, and practicing solo so you can like test out how you feel and staying in the headspace, and also knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect every time. I feel like romance novels and maybe fan fiction for some of the younger people, like those expectations can get into your head, and you need like think every time you need to have fireworks, like mind-blowing, perfectly synchronized orgasms that are earth-shattering and perfect. Like no, no. As long as you had fun and you feel good and you feel fulfilled, that's what matters. Like that getting your head together is like one of the best things you can do.
I love the so when I'm listening to you and you're talking about getting your head together and like thinking of like unpacking the shame, unpacking the like compulsory sex or obligated sex or feeling like you have to have sex, I'm thinking, well, what's like a lot of times people aren't really sure that they're doing that. And I'd love to hear what you have to say, but sometimes this is what oftentimes I tell clients. I say that there are 2 dirty words in sex, and they both start with an S, and it is should and sorry. So, yeah, just wait for it.
I'm waiting.
You find yourself in your head saying something that starts with should or shouldn't. I shouldn't want da 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 da. I shouldn't have to read an erotic story to want to have sex with my spouse. I should be wet already. I should I should have an orgasm when my partner has an orgasm. So whenever it's should and shouldn't, that's a cue that there is no should and shouldn'ts with sex. Like, I always say, like, I cue into that and say, that's a little flag that's saying maybe you should. You can look at that a little bit more and explore, like, because there's probably very few things that are shoulds and shouldn'ts. Sorry is another indicator of shame or feeling like you should have done something that you didn't, right? So sorry. Yeah, I know. It's not, this isn't like, yes, you should get consent. Yes, you should say sorry when you hurt somebody, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but in general, again, every client that I've ever worked with, all their sorries and shoulds and shouldn'ts haven't been in that category. And as OTs, we can really be listening to our clients and listen to them when they said, well, I should fill in the blank and I shouldn't fill in the blank. And that is often a point for OTs to do education on the fact that they are completely normal with whatever they're doing or not doing. And you know, again, that sorry is typically like an avenue that we can get out where they're feeling shame about something, or they're apologizing to their partner. Here, great example. I'm sorry I didn't maintain my erection. I'm sorry I lost my erection. You don't actually need to apologize about that. You know, erections are a physiological process. Where is it that you feel like you should have to have an erection 100% of the time that you're sexual, which is really difficult to do. So those are, you know, those are just little like clues that I like to either, you know, tell clinicians to look for or tell clients to look for to kind of cue in on when they need to, as you said, sorry, what was your phrase? Like get the head,
your head right.
Yeah, get your head right.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's something I always like when people come to me and they're like if it's something mental or like emotional, one of the things we always go through is like where do we think this is coming from? Like what pressure are you getting? Is it like you watched a lot of porn so you think you should be like squirting when he's coming? Like no. Like oh my gosh. Or I have like the people that are like he said my name quietly and I like didn't immediately fall to my knees, and it's like where is this coming from? Or I had to fake an orgasm. That is like something I hear all the time is I put on the like porn voice and faked an orgasm so it could be over. And that is something that that's like part of like the whole orgasm requirement that I never.
Yep. You're back with yeah, totally. I hear this a lot. It shouldn't take so long for me to orgasm.
Yeah.
You know, it takes, you know, there are averages for male bodies and female bodies, but like it's never not.
It's not a game. Right. The scoreboard is not running out on you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not gonna get a foul if you go too long, or you have to take a break, or like you're going for a round 2 later because like you guys need to take some time.
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah, and the more, you know, the more we stress out about orgasming, the farther we're getting away from orgasming.
Yes.
Slow is fast, slow is smooth, smooth is okay. Hold on, everybody, wait. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So like the slower you go and like the less you chill about an orgasm, sorry, the more that you like kind of relax about having one, the kind of sooner you will actually have one.
Yes.
Game, remember, but like that kind of helps the whole system run in a way that's more in alignment with like what you want. So
yeah, and in kink, like one of the things they say all the time is as long as like you guys have talked it out, you don't always have to have an orgasm to have fun. Like like you can end play and be like, we are exhausted. We had a lot of stimulation and we're good. Like
good.
That is like part of the like getting sort of out of your own head and letting sensuality and intimacy take the front seat instead of your brain and your expectations and what society has told you.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it would be such an interesting experience, you know, for our listeners or for our clients to just kind of like have a sexual encounter that is not even remotely focused on having an orgasm.
Yeah.
And see what comes up, right? Like, maybe it's dirty talk or role playing or just different areas of your body that feel incredible to be touched, but you would never orgasm from having that area of your body touched. Yeah.
And even just trying that solo.
Sure.
So that way, because I know so many, like I've had people in their 30s and 40s that are like, I've never orgasmed, or I don't think I've ever orgasmed. And I'm like, if you have to think, then you probably haven't. And they always think they have to do it with a partner. I'm
Right.
like, no, try it on your own. Let's try this solo first.
Yeah.
And just focus an entire session on what feels good without thinking I have to orgasm I have to orgasm to end this. No.
Yes.
No, it's not a deadline. Just feel good. If you want to be done in half an hour, so be it. But
Yeah.
like focus on what feels good
Yeah.
and use that as information.
I love that. Use that as information. Start on your elbow. Like start on your elbow, move up to your chest, spend a little time there, try the nipples, see what happens, like, and then move to your other parts. Like it's just, like start with your elbow and like see what that does. I also too, I love it. You were saying 30 minutes. Like I think a timer is a great therapeutic technique where it helps people be like, oh, okay, so there is an end to this. And I only have to, if this is uncomfortable, then I only have to knowing it's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to be done in 5 minutes, helps people take that first step.
Yeah.
So I really encourage using the timer a lot too. And that's just kind of that exposure therapy or managing the anxiety, or changing the pattern. Like it really helps to use a timer too.
Yeah. And I only said half an hour because I really like to have people sort of get into almost meditation first.
Yes.
And that takes forever to get into for some people, and doing like breathing, because it really gets you, hopefully, the hope is that it gets you out of, I have to make dinner and then I have to go buy onions and garlic, and oh my God, onions and garlic, that's going to make me smell horrible. Like it gets you to be like, this is my time. This is what I'm doing in my time, and really helps you refocus yourself, because like, I know it's so cheesy that like the brain is the biggest sex organ. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And so we have to help it out. Help it shut down and then tune into something else. Yeah. Oh my
Almost
God.
like yoga.
Yeah. Well, Jess, we are so grateful for joining us on this Teach Me Sex. Thank you for sharing yourself so that we could learn, and more importantly, so that we could try out new ways to play, to have sex, to communicate in a way that feels authentic to us. So I really want to just say thank you for your time, and thank you for being here. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I'm always excited to learn about your research and your consulting work, your coaching work. That is just like so cool that we've got an OT in the kink space, right? So to all of our listeners, if you want to get in touch with Jess, I'll have all of their handles in the notes, and I'll add your Instagram account and Laurel's research as well. So thank you again to this community. I just want to mention too that the Institute, we just did our annual accreditation report, and I'm so fueled and thrilled by this community. It's just total badass OTs. There's trailblazing, doing sex and intimacy work. It's so cool. So I just want to remind everyone of the sale that's coming this week. The 3-day flash sale starts on Wednesday for the Certified Sexuality OT CEU courses. And you can use these to enhance your comfort, your competency, addressing sex with your clients, and being a sex and intimacy champion for them. So, all right. Well, good night, everyone. And Jess, thank you again so much.
No problem. This is fun.
Yes, good. I'm glad. We'll have you on again. And anyone has someone to recommend for the Teach Me Sex, I love doing this interview. So let me know.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye, Jess.